Hello everyone, this is William Armstrong. I wanted to show you something today from an article from Ars Technica about malware that basically blocks access to pirated websites. So let me just make sure I can open a new tab. New tab. Basically, this article is on Ars Technica as soon as the Discover loads. And Microsoft's Linux repositories were down for 18 out plus hours, so ouch. But from Softhouse News, from news.softhouse.com, I'll just read this. It says here, vigilante malware rats out software pirates while blocking the pirate bay. Written by Andrew Brandon. In one of the strangest cases I've ever seen in a while. I've seen in a while. One of my lab's colleagues recently told me about a malware campaign whose primary purpose appears to stray from the more common malware motives. Instead of seeking to steal passwords or to extort a computer's owner for ransom, this malware blocked infected users' computers from being able to visit a large number of websites dedicated to software piracy by modifying the host file on the affected system. The malware also downloaded and delivered a second malware payload, an executable named processhacker.jpg. Modifying the host file is a crude but effective method to prevent a computer from being able to reach a web address. It is crude because, while it works, the malware has no persistence mechanism. Anyone can remove the entries after they've been added to the host file. They stay removed unless you run the program a second time. It was also very familiar to me personally because I discovered a family of malware more than 10 years ago that performed a nearly identical set of behaviors and wrote up an analysis. A process monitor log shows a fake Among Us malware executable modifying the host file. We weren't able to discern the provenance for this malware, but its motivation seemed pretty clear. It prevents people from visiting software piracy websites, if only temporarily, and sends the name of the pirated software the user was hoping to use to a website, which also delivers a secondary payload. The file adds from a few hundred to more than 1,000 web domains to the host file, pointing at the local host address 127.0.0.1. Fake games on Discord. At least some of the malware disguised as pirated copies of a wide variety of software packages was hosted on a game chat service Discord. Other copies distributed through BitTorrent were also named after popular games, productivity tools, and even security products accompanied by additional files. More on those lower down in the story that make it appear to have originated with a well-known file sharing account on the Pirate Bay. The provenance of this file in virus total was Discord. As you can see, there's an image there up above. There seems to be hundreds of different software brands represented by the file names found in the search on Virus Total related samples. Files like Left 4 Dead 2 version 2.2.01 and Last Stand plus DLCs plus Multi 19 and Minecraft 1.5.2 cracked full installer online server list mimic the naming conventions commonly used to label pirated software. The files that appear to be hosted on Discord's file sharing tend to be lone executable files. The ones distributed through BitTorrent have been packaged in a way that more closely resembles how pirated software is typically shared using that protocol, added to a compressed file that also contains a text file and other ancillary files, as well as an old-fashioned internet shortcut file pointing to the Pirate Bay. Many but not all the malware executables were digitally signed by a bogus code signer. This might help it pass some rudimentary checks of whether the file is signed, regardless of the cryptographic validity, but these signed files don't bear any scrutiny. The signatures have a signer name that is just an 18-character long random string of uppercase letters. The certificate validity began on or around the first day most of the files appeared to be downloaded or set to expire on December 31st, 2039. Likewise, the properties of the sheets of the malware executables doesn't align with what the file name of the malware makes it appear to be. Most of the files represented themselves as being installers for full-featured, licensed copies of games or productivity software, but many of the actual files have completely different names in the file description fields such as AVG Remediation EXE, BitLocker Drive Encryption, or Microsoft Office Multi-MSI Active Directory Deployment Tool. The creators don't seem to have cared that these property sheets didn't match the file names and weren't too picky about. We found a few archives that were pretending to contain installers for different software packages, but that contained the same malware executable just with a different name slapped on. What the malware does. The end user experience of running the malware is brief. When double clicked, it triggers the appearance of a bogus error message that reads the program can't start because msvcr100.dll is missing from your computer. Try reinstalling the program to fix this problem. Using Process Monitor, I was able to determine that it never even queries a Windows API for this file. To call the malware's bluff, I dropped a valid copy of this older DLL that checks out into the folder with the program itself, and the bogus dialog appears anyway. The malware does a few things upon execution. It checks to see whether it can make an outbound network connection. If it can, it attempts to contact the URI on the domain 1flchier.com. The domain appears to be a typo-squat clone of the cloud storage provider OneFisher, spelled with an L, or FLCHIER URL, spelled with an L as the third character in the name instead of an I. The malware used the same user agent string for these requests. Mozilla 5.0, Gecko 41.0, Firefox 41.0, even though there were other user agent strings embedded in the files. Ironically, a few of the host file modifications prevented users from visiting the legitimate 1flchier web domain. The sample performed two HTTP GET requests to this domain. The first was to retrieve a secondary executable payload named processhacker.jpg. The second uses a query string to send file name of the executable that was run to the website's operators. Unfortunately, we don't know who owns the site, and it no longer responds to requests, nor has a DNS record. Nevertheless, the malware that tries to contact this site is still available from download links and torrents. The process hacker binary has some interesting characteristics of its own, including the fact it sets the mutex of who art you tell mean diligently who you, so it only runs one copy of itself. Some samples on execution seem to have a kill switch. When first run, these samples search for a couple of very specific file names in any of the locations defined by the %path %environment variable. If it finds them both, the software quits. The anti-piracy kill switch shown there in that image up above. The file name it looks for are 7686, the long string of numbers, and another set of long string numbers. I won't read those long string numbers out. When I created the 0-byte files named after each of those names and then stuck a %path folder, the software halted on launch and didn't modify the host file. Many of the samples also performed a query of the Windows registry for a specific key that isn't normally a part of Windows. HKLM system current control set control CI disable 261 789 32. Judging by the name, I guess that this might be another kill switch, but when I manually created that key and ran those samples, I observed that the malware checked to see if the key was there, got an affirmative response from the operating system, and then went right on executing. In that image, you can see the domains of the pirate websites, such as the Pirate Bay, that the malware attempts to block by modifying the host file. Finally, it modifies the host file. On modern Windows computers, the malware has to run as an elevated admin privileges user. Most of the malware triggered Windows to elevate its privileges, but not all of it did. The samples that didn't automatically ask for the additional privileges failed to modify the host file when I ran them normally, but did when I ran them as an administrator. BitTorrent bundles near bogus bulk. Looking more closely at these files bundled with the installer, it is clear that they have no practical benefit other than to give the archive the appearance of the files typically shared over BitTorrent and to modify hash values with the additional random data. There it says here the readme.txt file is identical with all samples right up there. Each archive includes a modified version of readme.txt file that says, among other things, the following. Install using .exe inside your folder. Everything will be activated using data.dat. If you can't find .exe, then it seems like it got deleted by your antivirus or Windows Defender. Antiviruses don't like cracks, so disable it while you're downloading and installing, and then re-enable after. The archive also contains a file called data.dat, as mentioned in readme.txt. Upon closer examination, it is a JPEG of an image of an artist's rendition of a pine forest. hard to see how that activates anything. The archives also contain a file ranging from about 90 kilobytes to more than 200 kilobytes in size, filled with mostly gibberish data with a randomized file name and the suffix .nfo. In other BitTorrent archives, these .nfo files are usually plain text files with additional information about the particular software bundled in the archive. But the .nfo files bundled with these malware contain some garbage data for the first 1,150 bytes, followed by a non-printable character, which renders everything the following that the character not visible in the text editor like Notepad. In that image, you can see the malicious archive shared via BitTorrent. The contents, you've got a MS VCR100.dll, malware bytes into malware premium, a info.nfo file, a DLL file of an extms1.gdi desktop, a pirate shortcut, and a readme.txt and data.dat, and you can see the error in that image up above. When viewed in the hex editor, the full contents are visible following that the first 1,150 bytes. The file contains a radical epithet that is repeated more than 1,000 times, taking up roughly the next 16 kilobytes of space, followed by a large randomly sized block of random alphabetic characters. Padding out the archive with the purposeless files of random length may simply be done to modify the archive's hash value. Padding it out with racist slurs told me all I needed to know about its creator. Detection and cleanup. Sophos endpoint products detect this threat by its unique runtime packer, which is the same as used by an unrelated malware family, Qbot, as mal/ncpack.apv. Users who have inadvertently run one of these files can clean up their host file manually by running a copy of Notepad elevated as a min and modifying the file at C Windows System 32 drivers, etc host, to remove all the lines that begin with 127.0.0.1 and reference the various Pirate Bay and other sites. Sophos Lab has published IOCs relating to this article, including file hashes to the Sophos Lab GitHub. The lab thanks senior manager for threat research Richard Cohen for his eagle eye finding of this oddball malware. The key takeaway here is to don't go on Pirate Bay or torrent websites and download software you didn't pay for. I repeat, don't go on torrent sites like Pirate Bay and other pirate websites to download legal modified cracked software. That's the key takeaway here. Basically, going onto torrent sites and downloading pirated software can result in malware infections and other issues, and resulting in downloading illegal movies, like, for example, like downloading the new, for example, when the new Rob Zombie the Monsters film comes out, there is a chance that that particular movie that Rob Zombie makes would end up on a torrent site to download illegally when people can go pay to see it in theaters or something like that. There's a chance that that movie may end up on a torrent site later on after a long time for people to download illegally, and most internet service providers have DMCA rules in regarding to downloading copyrighted movies or something, and internet service providers are able to detect about downloading copyrighted content. An example of this would be City of Monroe Internet, called City of Monroe Public Utilities Internet. I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to go directly to the City of Monroe. The City of Monroe, Georgia uses their own internet service through the city directly, the cable coax internet service, and they have a strict internet usage policy of City of Monroe Utilities. So we're going to go to their website, and they have an acceptable use policy of what you can and can't do with their internet. I have been to the City of Monroe that has a utility department that provides cable, TV, internet, phone, electricity directly through the city themselves. I've been to Monroe, and we're going to look for the acceptable use policy that's in here. So let me just go through and find it, and I'll show you what they have a strict thing about with their internet service. So let's see if I can click on it. The City of Monroe has been founded since 1821, that long ago, and now we're going to go to, let's see, forms and applications. There is a a internet acceptable use policy by the city of Monroe that implements rules on what you can and can't do with their internet, like what you're not allowed to be doing, otherwise you'd get punished by the city of Monroe. And here it is, residential service acceptable use policy. So we're going to go and look at it. This ties into downloading this. Me talking about the vigilante malware also talks about piracy and torrenting things you shouldn't be torrenting in the first place on internet providers that can catch people who do torrent. Okay, here it is. The City of Monroe Acceptable Use Policy for Residential High-Speed Internet Services. This was approved in 2015, and the City of Monroe prohibits activities that are not very good, such as unlawful things, such as transmitting or disseminating information, data, unlawful, threatening, or defamatory. They also talk about DMCA, about network usage, about implementing data caps on their city internet, 350 gigs of data, and if you go over it, you get punished. But they do implement the data caps is 350 gigabytes per month on the home internet. They do implement that. I have no way of knowing if it's still being used or not. But down here in the section of the City of Monroe and Acceptable Use Policy, I'll read it. Copyright and Digital Millennium Copyright Act requirements. What is the City of Monroe's DMCA policy? The City of Monroe is committed to complying with U.S. copyright and related laws and requires all customers and users of the service to comply with these laws. This is very lengthy, so I'm going to basically talk about how the Digital Millennium Copyright Act has been applied since 1998. The DMCA to report alleged infringements, just like AT&T and other providers have DMCA rules that implement when someone is caught downloading movies or content that is copyrighted, that the company that owns the copyrighted content can file a DMCA note with the internet service provider and the IP address that's behind it. In the City of Monroe's punishments are a 3-day suspension of service, second offense is 7, and third result in termination of service. So they basically give you 3 strikes, and they will terminate you with or without notice for any affected customer or user. So they have like a policy that implements that use. So basically, the takeaway, as I've said, is don't go torrenting illegal content. Don't go torrenting games you didn't pay for, and you'll be fine. I repeat, don't go torrenting things you didn't pay for. This is William Armstrong signing out, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Whoops.